Sullivan was a tragic accident, and it was devastating to her friends, to her family, to our entire community. The death of Vanessa Sullivan was a tragic accident, but it was not murder. Now, the prosecution has come before you today, and they have told you that they have met their high burden. As they said, the highest burden in our criminal justice system. That they have proven to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Ms. Dawson is guilty of driving under the influence and of murder. But what opposing counsel does not fully explain is exactly what Ms. Dawson needs to have done in order for her to have committed such a crime. And they want you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, to lock Ms. Dawson up in the same place that we would lock her up if she had put a gun to Vanessa Sullivan's head and pulled the trigger. They're saying what she did was just as bad as if she sat in her room for a month and planned the murder of her best friend and then carried it out. Is that what we heard today? In order for Ms. Dawson to have committed murder one, she needs to have acted extremely recklessly under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to human life. To have reasonable doubt to say that Ms. Dawson acted with an extreme indifference to human life? The prosecution says Ms. Dawson drank too much. What evidence do we have of that? She had an extreme indifference to human life when she met up with her two friends at the restaurant, Chuggies, that evening. They drank a few drinks in honor of Vanessa's 21st birthday. They laughed and they had a really good time. They saw a really good band and they celebrated. Did she have an extreme indifference to human life? What evidence has the prosecution brought before you that Ms. Dawson was drunk? Mr. James said that Ms. Dawson got to the bar at 2, left the bar near midnight or a little bit after that. She had 6 or 7 drinks in the course of over 10 hours. That should create reasonable doubt in your minds, ladies and gentlemen. Taylor Hobson, the prosecution's own witness, can only tell us that she saw Ms. Dawson have 4 drinks the entire night. Ms. Dawson drank too much. You heard Jordan James. Ms. Dawson doesn't drink and drive, ever. Ms. Dawson is responsible. She watches her limits, and she knows those limits. And she knew her limits that night. Now, what else has the prosecution brought before us to contest that Ms. Dawson was drunk? We have a number from Dr. Smith, and it's a high number. However, Dr. Smith admitted to you on the stand that number could be wrong. Her machine has flaws, and if Ms. Dawson had mouth alcohol, that machine would be wrong. There could be a spike in the numbers, and it could be much higher than the actual number should be. And then we heard Dr. Ashley Norton. Dr. Ashley Norton told us that Ms. Dawson did have symptoms that night that would cause that number to be wrong. Ms. Dawson had heartburn. Now, the prosecution says Ms. Dawson didn't care. Is that what you heard? Ms. Dawson knew she was okay to drive that night. She got in the car knowing that she was the one who had to keep her friends safe. As she turned onto Canyon Road, at Taylor Hobson's suggestion, it started to torrentially rain. And you heard today, that's a dangerous road. And it was pitch black that night. There's no lights anywhere. It was raining really hard. Ms. Dawson focused through the rain, through the dark, through her headlights. She focused on that road. And when that road was almost done, they were almost home, there was one last dangerous curve where you heard Leslie Roman tell you the guardrail doesn't extend around the most dangerous part of the curve. There's trees so close to the road. If you go off the road just a little, even on a good day, it's almost impossible to avoid hitting a tree. The shoulder is so steep, it's almost impossible to avoid a collision. So Miss Dawson drove down that road, focusing, holding onto the steering wheel as tightly as she could through the rain on that curve. And then a deer appeared in front of her car. And Miss Dawson made a calculated decision. She avoided that animal, not with an extreme indifference to human life, but in order to preserve it, members of the jury. She turned off that road to save the lives of her friends. She was doing the best that she could. She was trying to keep them safe. Opposing counsel says Miss Dawson didn't care. Miss Dawson did care. She hung on to that steering wheel around the most dangerous part of the curve after she swerved to avoid that animal. 124 feet, she hung on. She did exactly what she was supposed to do. And when, members of the jury, she turned back onto that road, trying to keep her friends safe, the vehicle lost traction and it spun out from under her and it hit a tree. And that tree is what killed Vanessa Sullivan. The factors of that night, not Miss Dawson. Miss Dawson did not have an extreme indifference to human life that night. She was just trying to get her friends home safely in a very bad storm. You heard, ladies and gentlemen, Officer Foster, a man trained to administer sobriety tests, didn't actually give Miss Dawson any sobriety tests until after the district attorney, Miss Sullivan, showed up. And then Officer Foster decided that it was a good idea to make Miss Dawson take sobriety tests. And you heard about the accident. Miss Dawson had just found out that her best friend was dead. There were sirens everywhere. It was dark and it was pouring rain, and Officer Foster was trying to administer the sobriety test to Miss Dawson with the District Attorney of Midlands. As much as the District Attorney of Midlands, Vanessa Sullivan's mother is suffering this year. We have sympathy for her, and we know that most of us in this courtroom can never imagine what she's going through. She is still a very powerful woman in this courtroom and in Midlands, and Miss Dawson knew that. The District Attorney of Midlands was screaming at Miss Dawson throughout the sobriety test, "I am going to make your life a living hell." Does that give us reasonable doubt? Do we doubt the validity of these sobriety tests? Miss Dawson was not even medically examined. Now when someone so young, so full of potential dies, it's natural for us to reach out, to look for something, someone to blame. And unfortunately, and unjustly in this case, the blame has landed where it should not, on Miss Danielle Dawson. Danielle was in a tragic accident, and it led to a fatality that is tragic, and nobody in this courtroom denies that. That is not enough to convict Danielle of murder. Danielle was in an accident. Find her not guilty. Thank you.
Rebuttal.